Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
You're listening to the Super Rugby Cymru podcast.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the SRC podcast. Joining me, Big M, as always, is Bucky John Harris and Mr. Joe Wilson. Good evening, my friends. How are we doing?
Doing good, Big M. You?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm all good in this front. It's nice to be back. A strange week off for me. But, things happen. So let's dive right back into it. I'm going to come to you, John, just to start us all off. Aberavon, they won a game.
They did. Back to winning ways. It was coming. I knew all along it was coming.
Yeah, to be fair.
Didn't know when. It could have been this season, it could have been next season, but it was definitely coming.
No, you've looked solid in all aspects of your game, just not quite getting over the line. So, fair dues. I'm assuming you were in the ground for this one?
Yes, it did make it long. We were supposed to be going to Brecon Railway, take the daughter along to that, but it got cancelled for a landslide, I think the missus said. So they cancelled it. So I was like, well, if we're not going in, I might as well pop down and watch the game in it. So, I've made my way along.
Hope everyone's okay, but it worked out the best for you again.
Yeah.
So 34-18, 6-pointer.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been a good RGC side this year, so this is no mean feat. And, barring your third try where, the restart, everything comes through your set piece. Everything was in a few phases of either your line out or your maul. It's quite a weapon going forward, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, the scrum as well was very strong on Saturday. Like, we got some good field position from scrum penalties. Every scrum that first half was resulting in a penalty. And every RGC scrum was almost getting shoved off it. So they did well to get the ball in and out very quickly. I was feeling good about getting a result out of this game, but I was quite surprised and impressed by how they won. They just because as we say, RGC have been very impressive this year. Most impressive them and Carmarthen of anyone. Considering what we thought was going into the season. But they didn't do anything that first half especially. They weren't in the game. We've given them an interception. And then we've switched off. They've scored a nice try off a pre-work line-out move as well. But the scrum was going well. The set piece, the line-out was functioning. The driving mauls were going well. The pick and drives, it's still not looking as sharp as like in the back line, but they work. It's coming. They're working on it. And yeah, it was the probably most complete performance they've had this season so far, but still stuff to work on as well. There was still, they've gone 2 tries up and then switched off a little bit, as they tend to do. And then RGC come back straight back into it with 2 tries of their own. But then we go get one straight off after they had tried to go back in front. And it was more the same in the second half then. the scrum evened out a bit in the second half once all the changes were made. Still got some young props. Young Dylan James is still learning, but he looks very promising. Ed Dunford had an amazing game. Rhys Thomas in the back row has been outstanding this year. I don't think he'd look out of place if he stepped up into an Ospreys team every week. Him and Ashton Evans in the back row, I think, nailed down 6 and 8 in that pack. They were great. Lewis Marsh in second row was another youngster who was amazing. Scott Denevo in the back line. Good to see Felix Gilbert back on the wing as well. He scored a lovely try from a Dunford cross kick because he's a big old unit, that boy. He was excellent pre-season and then got injured. So I didn't even realise we were on for a 6-pointer until when RGC were attacking towards the end when they scored their last try. And someone was like, don't let them in, we're on for 6 points. And I was, oh yeah, I forgot about that rule. So,
that's just a John way of thinking.
Yeah. So on the whole, I'm very happy with that result. Much better. But the game management still, I think, needs working on. There's still a lot of young players in that back line. They still need that calm head as good as Ed Dunford is and could be. And they're still switching off at key moments when they're on top and got the ascendancy, and then letting teams back in and giving teams points. But they've come away with 6 points, which they badly needed at the moment. Yeah. With 2 games in hand now, if they can win those, they're in that mid-table mix then, like we said. Me and Rob said last week.
Yeah, so you've touched on it before I come to RGC and you, Joe. You utilised the in-behind space more in this game. It was a bit of a copy and paste with your chip in behind. So, you identified the sweeper, weren't there? And then that cross-field kick that you touched on. So that's a variation of you again that we haven't, seen as much this season. So if we come on to RGC, and obviously it's going to be disappointing for them, but if we start with that interception try, the support lines, I mean, that ball must have gone through 4 or 5 more sets of hands, without touching the ground. So, Joe, what did you see out of RGC in this game? That's, good signs for them.
I think what stands out when you look at the way they took the 2 tries were 2 really well taken tries. I thought Rhys Tudor on the wing looks a real talent. He looks a big lump. He's quick. And he hits the line with real pace, which makes him really awkward to put down. And I think that's what's really frustrating about RGC at the moment this season is that their peak is so high, is really, really good. But I just felt in this game, they don't seem capable of sort of producing a high enough intensity for a long time. I think from what I saw, it looked about 10, 15 minutes in the first half and about 10 minutes in the second half that they were really putting 100% of their effort. And I think that's where part of the issue lies. And I just think the flip side of the good point about what Aberavon are able to do, the line out went well, the scrum went well, the maul went well, and then they're scoring within about 3 or 4 phases, is that I think defensively RGC will be disappointed that they're shipping those tries, because they'll know from those set pieces they've got to be resourcing the ruck on the first ruck to try and slow that ball down. Otherwise, if you get quick ball, you're away again. And I just feel like defensively they're a little bit open, especially when they travel away. I don't want to say it's a mentality thing, because I think that we've seen they've not travelled well, but I do think they'll be frustrated with the way the defence is working at the moment in the league, because shipping tries 3 or 4 phases from a set piece just isn't a good sign, and it's not the sign of a team that want to finish in the top 4, which I know they'll all be desperate to do. So I think there's a lot of promise there. The peak is really, really good. They're not producing a consistent effort for it. And defensively, for me, they'll be really disappointed with the way they function down at Aberavon. I think they would have looked at that game before kickoff and thought, let's put ourselves in a position to go and win this in the last 10, and they end up shipping a 6-pointer. So I think the coaching staff will be disappointed, and I think the players will be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with all of that. Their defense is a big work on, especially away from home. You mentioned Reece Tudor there, and I do want to come to his try because he made that out of nothing. He takes the ball out wide. He's got a defender in front of him. He beats his man. Not very much space. So, that was well done enough. And like you said, he just hits that line. He picked exactly where he wanted to go between the two last defenders. And he just ran flat out. So fair play to the boy. He looks top notch where he is right now. And with Sam Stoddard as well, the back three at RGC is, it's impressive to say the least. So that comes.
I think what stands out for me as well is if you look at his, for such a large guy, if you look at his pickup, his sort of first 10 meters, he's no right to be running at the speed he is 10 meters after sort of starting. It bodes well. He's a handful, real handful.
Okay, so that takes us on to our next game, which is Cardiff against Pontypool. Comfortable win for Cardiff. So I want to start with Pontypool on this one because it was literally the first 10-15 minutes and then they just fluttered out. But their single score, like Scott Matthews, it is something that we don't see quite enough of, is spinning through contact for that try. He takes the ball close to the line and he just rolls his shoulder and he gets through and over. Is such a simple skill that you get taught, when you first going into contact, under 9s, under 10s. And we don't see enough in this. Incredibly effective, as we saw over there. But inevitably, a 27-10 loss for Pontypool. So, Joe, you were a Cardiff boy. Tell us, what did Cardiff do well? Well, let's be honest, what didn't they do well?
Well, I thought really interestingly, what they did well was start the game well. I thought the first sort of 15 to 20 minutes was Pontypool, and they sort of raced into that early. But, what's the 10's name? Meek was pulling the strings. They were getting a platform, and that Pontypool pack, they're a competitive pack. So I knew this wasn't going to be a massive blowout for Cardiff. That and I'd spoken to Dan Hill in the week in the lead up to it with the Cardiff Schools game, and he was sort of quite bullish about the fact that Pontypool pack were going down there to do a number on the Cardiff pack. And I think, in fairness to them, that sort of first 15-20 minutes, that's exactly what they did. And I think Pooler they were proving difficult for a team for Cardiff to get hold of and to work out. But we've said it a number of times. I think where Cardiff are sort of separating themselves from the rest of the league at the moment is they seem to be able to find a way to stop the opposition. It may take them, 50, 60 minutes, but they seem to find a way to slow or stop the opposition. And then they finish really, really well. The second halves they're learning, and the last 20s they're learning. And I think, Pontypool will be gutted that they didn't sort of kick on from that early start and really sort of double down and take advantage. But the one player that I wanted to pick out in this game, who I thought was outstanding, was Harry Wild. I just felt like he was overawed by the physicality to begin with, because he's not a big 10. But he reminds me a little bit of Gareth Davis back in the day, the Gareth Davis that played for Cardiff. He's just got he's got great vision, great creativity, and I think Fishy's given him the life to really sort of push on and try stuff. And what really sort of stood out, his decision making was spot on, his timing was really good, and his passing width. He just sort of pings these passes really close to contact out wide, and the blitz defenses, if you're sort of playing one, are getting picked off, and it's hitting these really quick wingers in Towie Cross and Tom Bowen, and they did it all season. But those wingers are not scoring those tries if they haven't got a 10 feeding them that ball. And Harry Wild in this game, I thought he was outstanding. Really, really, really good talent.
Yeah, I mean, it was a talking point for us in the first few games. I think it was 4 games in a row where you had different starting 10s. And it wasn't even a case of start one week, bench one week. So it was 4 completely different 10s. So Wild has got that shirt now, and it seems to be his. And we all know how good Dewi Cross is. We know how prolific he is. But that he had no right to score that first try. they say beat a man in a phone box, he beat him in a shoebox. There was no space there whatsoever. I have no idea how he managed to cross our line. Just absolutely outstanding finish. And something that Cardiff are just doing incredibly well. The basics, their presentation and their recycling skills are just superb. Like I said, these are things you get taught early on, and that's because of how important they are. Getting your body shape right, stretching as far as you can to present that ball away from the defender. And they just worked wonders. It was sublime in the lead up to Tom Bowen's try, just the ability to move that ball fast. I mean, this Cardiff side is impressive, and I hate saying those words. But it's going to be interesting to see who comes to topple them. So 27-10 winners, 6-pointer. They're going strong. So we travel a bit further west now. Llandovery at home to Bridgend. And once again, Bridgend start really fast. And Ed Howley just, he walks over Maynard for that to get the first score of the game. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, Maynard will get the last laugh with 4 conversions and the win. But they must have been very buoyant at that point. So, John, what can you tell me about this Bridgend side? They starting games fast. Penalty try from the ball in this game, but that's kind of seems where it all ends.
Yeah, it's a shame, isn't it? Again, they straight in the game. It's 2 points at half time. You've got to be thinking, right, we're in this now, because Llandovery don't tend to start too slow. So if you could start well against them, there's a good chance you can rattle them and be in it. But again, is it like being Rob said last week? I think our predictions for it is just once you get to an hour, I think we just both said Llandovery were just going to have too much firepower in the back, too much up front is going to tell in the end. And again, Bridgend are scoring nice tries, but for them to not score anything in the second half, I find quite surprising. Because I think I maybe predicted them to get a try bonus point. I can't remember, because they do score lots of tries. But yeah, Llandovery are starting to hit their stride, I think, a bit now. They're a little slow start by their standards, but I think that's 5 in a row now, either 4 or 5 in a row, and that top 4 is starting to emerge in this league now. I think there's a little bit of daylight between 4th and 5th. I think Bridgend will be disappointed they haven't come away with something. I would have thought, if you're going up, I think we're going to get at least a bonus point out of this from somewhere if it's losing or 4 tries. But it's job done for Llandovery, and you couldn't do it more paint by numbers. 4 tries, 5 points. 4 tries, 4 conversions. Job done. I think Bridgend need their confidence back, I think, from somewhere. I don't know where it's going to come from, unless they play Swansea soon. But they've already done that twice, haven't they? So
you're not wrong, but yeah. So Llandovery went into the half at the lead 14-12, courtesy of a 250th appearance try by Panda Aaron Warren. And I like this. It was an offload literally on the gain line. And again, he just picked his line and shot straight through, something that, again, we've seen, certain wingers in this league, Derry Cross, Lloyd Lewis, Aaron Warren, these boys have been doing it for years, and it's great to see. And you talked about Llandovery's power, a maul try, which, we'll come on to someone else that does a lot of maul tries in a bit. And then the final one was just pure battering of that try line to get it done. So, Joe, this Llandovery side, are they starting to peak, or are they still in second, third gear?
I didn't actually feel that they got out of second gear in this game. I mean, they've won it convincingly by 16 points, but I thought Bridgend sort of started well. And when you teams in there, enjoy going down to the Drovers and playing on that carpet, Bridgend are one of those teams. They're a very fast, very skillful side. They're statistically more likely to try and keep the ball on the deck a little bit more than a lot of other sides. I thought this game was going to be a lot tighter than it ended up being. I think obviously the Drovers' power comes to the fore ultimately, but I think I'm right in saying that's now no wins in 4 games for Bridgend. Their last win 5 games ago was
might be 5.
1-pointer against Aberavon, 29-28. So I think whatever's going on down there, they've got to get a grip of it, because you could point to 1 or 2 games and say, oh, there's a lack of game management there. When you get to sort of 4 games on the bounce where you haven't won, and you only just won the other one by a point, I think you've got to start looking at some of the leadership there and just saying, you've those boys in the pack have got to get a handle on the game. They've got to give you a foothold in the game, and you've got to get parity of possession. And I just don't think, I felt it before. I could never see Drovers losing it, but I thought there'd be 1 score in it. And I think the fact that there isn't, Bridgend for me looked the opposite of Aberavon. I think Aberavon have used this break really well. I know Jason Hyatt spoke about, they've been away and looked at a lot of the learnings around the game management piece. And I felt that came to the fore the other night against Aberavon. Bridgend are the opposite. This game looked to me as if they spent that period and learned nothing. I mean, I hope it's not true, but they kind of played the second half like that. They just hadn't learned anything from what had happened in the previous 3 games before the break. So hopefully they're working on it, and the work comes on in the later games. But they'll be really disappointed with that by way of a return second game in. And I just think, like you say, that the fact that they haven't scored in the second half is bitterly disappointed with the talent that they've got on the pitch. I think you would have. I felt with the talent they had on the pitch, they would have scored 4 tries. I could see it being a 5 tries to 4 try game, but they just didn't get anywhere near it. And I think Llandovery, without moving into top gear, just suffocated them out of the game, really.
Yeah. So 28-12 win for Llandovery, 6 points comfortable in the bank. Let's go back down the other side of the country for Newport at home against Carmarthen Quins. 31-20 winners, Newport. Quins didn't really get going until the second half. So I do firmly believe the fact that it wasn't a 6-pointer for Newport is a massive positive for the Quins, and it shows, the progression that we've seen in them this season. Couple of nice tries. The first one came from a nice break from the scrum, from the back of a scrum. Lovely support line. Pop off a floor and boom, he's over. And the second one again, another winger, Ivan Davis. Literally, he takes the ball going backwards, beats his man, and he's got a simple 2-on-1 to go over. So, they're being clinical when they're asked to. It's just, can they repeat that for longer periods in games? Now, if we talk about Newport, I mean, wow. In an attacking sense, they did absolutely everything at 100 miles an hour. And it is frightening. Just watching the highlights, it is frightening seeing how fast and how hard they are running, and the way they're able to create mismatches so easily. I know when I spoke to Tyron at the start of the season, he said they wanted to play an all-round game. And by God, they are playing an all-round game, which is amazing for them to see. So, John, I'll come to you. What did you like in this out of this Newport outfit?
Well, very similar to what you just said. They're I just love I love the speed that they play the game at. They hit the line so quickly. Players look like they look so sharp. They look so ready to carry. They look like they all know their jobs. They all know where each other's going to be, what each other's going to do next. Lloyd, the winger, I love watching that guy play. He's so sharp, so quick, so strong as well. I don't know if he's purposely wearing a jersey too small, but it looks a bit tight on those arms. Yeah, they have got a bit of an all-round game at the moment, but it's similar to like Cardiff and Llandovery, though. They're all it's going to be so close to call this the four teams in that top four at the moment. I think I can't wait for when they all do start playing each other, because we've got some amazing matchups to come. Yeah, and they're all. I think what they're good at is they can soak up the pressure, and while they're doing it, just figure out what the other team is trying to do, and then they stop them scoring in that time where they figure it out. And then once they've figured them out, then they use that to put them away, and it's really enjoyable to watch Newport at the moment.
Yeah. So, Joe, your thoughts on this one, but
yeah, I think Quins will be gutted, because I think they're one of the few teams that can handle Newport's power with the pack that they've got, and I don't think that there's much between the back lines. But they just didn't start the game well enough, and I think half time it was 12 to Newport, which wasn't decisive, but I just felt that it had those sort of 4 penalties in the first half. Was it 4 penalties? I think in the first half to Newport, it just looked like
2 tries and a conversion.
There was a bit there from Quins where you were just sort of thinking, I wanted to see a little bit more from the first whistle, and I don't know if, for whatever reason, I don't know if it was sort of the warm up wasn't right or what, but they just didn't come out of the sheds right. And like you say, Newport from minute one, probably the only saving grace was they literally came out doing everything at 110%, and it wasn't sticking quite as much in the first half. In the second half, it really did click, and they were able to pull away. But there was some great rugby on show from both sides. I just think Quins will be disappointed that they didn't get a little bit closer to Newport in this and start the game with the intensity that they brought in the second half. That said, I thought Newport looked accomplished. It was an all-court game. I think they're one of the few sides in the league that are capable of going tight with all the teams in the league, toe to toe. They can go through phase play, strategically looking to sort of manipulate the defences, like you say, and create those mismatches, or they can just strike off set piece and within 3-4 phases score tries. So they've got everything. I think hitherto where they've been struggling is they just haven't put all of that together. But I think we're beginning to see a little bit of that, and that bodes really well for the league. But it looks a little bit ominous for everybody else.
Yeah. That brings us down to our final game from the last round, which was Swansea at home to Ebbw Vale. I don't think anyone would have held out much hope for Swansea in this one, given how their season has gone. So a 40 points to 20 loss isn't as bad as it might seem on paper for them. They got 3 tries, admittedly one quite late on. But they've scored from the back of a maul, and with the other 2 tries, they've created space and they've executed it well. So they have what it takes to get over the line. They're just not producing it often enough. And, we're talking about a Swansea side just, missing a lot of the key players, especially the ones we spoke about earlier in the season. So, Morgan Morse and Luca Giannini, 2 back rows who are incredibly well. They're both not involved at the minute. So there's still a lot to come out of this Swansea side. I don't know what you boys thought about Swansea. One thing we have to note is they have a new boy in Ian Cornelius who's just signed for the Ospreys. Welsh qualified, Australia, New Zealand. I'm not quite sure which one's which, but he took his try incredibly well, so that will bode well for them. Onto the away side, Ebbw Vale. It is just pure forward domination at the minute. They're playing an 8-man game, and to say it's working is a massive understatement. I think every single one of their tries has come from the forward. I know the scrum pushover for who was it? It was Ryan Jenkins. It's just a thing.
I showed that to the boys in work when I watched it. Yeah, I was like, oh, look at that.
It's just something else. So, Joe, tell me, do Ebbw have any? Do they have weakness in the back line, or is it just a case of the forwards are so good, just let them take care of it?
I think they've only really been tested the once when they came down to Cardiff, where for me that reliance on what is a utterly dominant maul got found out, and there was, for me, during that game when they came down to Cardiff, there was a distinct lack of ambition in the back line. So I don't know if that I don't know if the coaching staff sort of came away from that game and went, we gave it to the backs too much. Let's sack them all off and just keep it in the forwards and maul everyone to death, which is what they've done for pretty much 4 or 5 rounds. But it works and it's highly effective. And I've got to admit, I just really love it, because what the league's producing then is styles. And I think that's vital. You know, if you think what this league is about, which is player development, all the players have got to develop, the forwards and the backs. It can't just be about wingers scoring tries and 10s looking pretty and controlling things. We've got to have some hard graft up front. And I think Ebbw Vale's pack are just producing something that the league can't cope with at the moment. And I think it's really refreshing. I just think they pose a problem that no other team in the league is capable of posing. And it's really difficult to live with when they're getting it right. I think the problem that I've got with Swansea is that I really hoped that they were going to use the break a little bit like, you know, I alluded to earlier with Aberravon, that they were going to do that analysis, work out where they were going wrong and fix some of the issues, but they haven't. And whereas I expect Aberravon to sort of improve and go up the league, the other bottom 2 of the bottom 3 are Bridgend and Swansea in this league. And that doesn't bode well for the Ospreys for me. You know, you can say that Swansea team is a young team, but they're almost so young that they're not learning. They're getting beaten every weekend. And there comes a point where I think some of those players will be looking around the changing room and start looking at the coach thinking, we don't get this. You know, whatever this plan of attack is you're asking us to do, it's not working. So they're bottom of the table on 3 points. So I don't want to kick them, but you're sort of looking at it thinking, do they need more resource to make that work? Or a bigger question would be, are they the right team in the league? You know, should Neath have been put in? Question mark. I don't know.
Oh no, he did not just say
don't start that again.
No. I'm going to avoid a big chunk of what you just said. I like what you're saying about there being different styles. And the fact is that the steel men are the ones who are forward based. I really like that fact. So, John, I'm going to steer away from Joe for a little bit now. Any more to add on this one?
Only a bit disappointed again in Swansea. Because one thing I noticed about Ebbw when we played them at the first game of the season, and you know, we got a strong pack, we've got a strong scrum, and we were out muscled and out scrummaged when we went up there. But when we started throwing the ball around and moving it about, you can hurt Ebbw. And I was thinking, well, I was hoping that maybe Swansea could have got a point out of this at home with some of the players they have in their back line. I thought if they just throw it about then, because they're not going to go toe to toe with that back up front. So move it about, shift them round, and you can score some tries against them. Maybe get a point out of the game. And they haven't done it. And they probably haven't been allowed to either. And that's not dissing Ebbw because they just almost a bit like the Georgia of the league, and it's all good knowing what they're going to do, but can you stop the back? Can you stop them up front? And it's great to see, because I think that's what we are short of in Wales is big, strong packs and big, strong forwards. That's where our national side's struggling. That's where our regions have been struggling for years, bar maybe the Ospreys. But even then, the best we hope for is parity as opposed to dominance. So it's great to see from that side. I want to see it. I like seeing big forward packs just smashing hell out of each other as well, like watching South Africa play, because it forces you to find something then, because if you don't, you're going to get battered for 80 minutes. So great for Ebbw Vale, and like I said, part of that top four that's starting to break away. Can't wait to see the games coming up. But I don't know where Swansea go from here. I'm optimistic every week, and every week it's not happening. And as Joe was saying, I don't know where it comes from. Are the players just not good enough? Are they not? Is something not working behind it with the coaching? Because we want to see a strong Swansea. Obviously, we don't want to see Swansea losing 9 games out of 9. We want to see all the teams competitive in this league, and thinking, anyone on their day could beat anyone. So I really hope they can turn it round. But I just don't know how they do it.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this past week's results. And if you've made it this far, like, share, subscribe. Every little thing you do helps. Give us a comment. We'd love some interaction. So straight in to round 10. And wow, you've just got a win back. And you now get to host Ebbw Vale. So John, as the home side, as Aberavon, you probably know when you're very forward orientated. Are you looking forward to this one, or are you more worried about it?
No, I'm very much looking forward to it. It was a great game, first game of the season when we went up there. It was a lot with 10 minutes to go. It could have gone either way. But as a game to watch, it was fantastic. Both sides just went at it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I hope I get down there to see it. Yeah, as we know, you've got to front up against these boys, or it's going to be a long old afternoon. But the Aberavon pack starting to click now. The scrums got better and better as the games are going on. And we've got some boys behind who can hurt Ebbw Vale, and with some good options coming back as well. With Joe Gage is back up to speed now. Say Felix Gilbert's back. Scott Denevo, fullback, is playing out of his skin. And I think we can sneak a win against these boys. But I know I say the same every week, but there is a factor of playing down the tag as well. So I'm going to go. I think I'm going to sneak this one, but it's going to be a battle and a half. You're going to be in a game against these boys, and you've got to front up, or you're going to get it smashed off the park. So if they can front up, I think they can sneak a win there. Bookie's got it as 5-2 for Aberavon, so they have got Ebbw Vale favourites 1-4, which is a 10-point head start they're giving Aberavon. So I think that's generous, but yeah. I'm going for an Aberavon win here, but it's going to be a one score or a single digit if it is.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I do think this is going to be a tighter game than some people are predicting, but I am going to sway towards Ebbw Vale. I don't quite see Aberavon as being there yet. If we were talking, back end of December, once you've had a bit of a run on a high, I would probably back you, but at the minute, I'm sorry, my friend. So, Joe, over to you.
I understand.
Yeah, I think what was pleasing on last weekend, Aberavon versus RGC is, and Jason Hyatt alluded to it, you could see that they'd gone away and done a lot of work on analysing where some of those performances have got away from them in the first block. I just think what you've got here is, in Ebbw Vale, a team that have got a weapon and they know how to use it. And I don't see Aberavon yet having the answers for this particular problem. I fully expect Ebbw Vale to finish in the top 4. I think that Aberavon will be competitive. I think there's probably only one score in it, maybe 10 points max. But I get to it.
Yeah. Okay, so next game up is Oh, Bridgend against Newport. Now, we haven't really spoken very positively about Bridgend on this, so I doubt anyone's going to pick them for this game. But Newport are, like we've said, they bring in an all-round game, and they bring in an all-round game at a high level. And I don't think Bridgend are going to be the team to stop them, unfortunately. So, Joe, what's your take on this one? Is it going to be a blowout, or can we see something from Bridgend?
Yeah, I think the first block for Bridgend was a highly skillful side. That was one of my takeaways, but also pretty ill-disciplined. We saw a couple of games where they just didn't, and for me, that's reflective of where they are as a team at the moment. I think when they get it right, they get it very, very right. When they don't get their way, they can be a little bit combustible. And Newport, in stark contrast, were grinding out wins in that first block without really producing anything greater than an 8 out of 10 performance. Whereas I felt that game the other day, if it wasn't an 8, they were pretty good, pretty well close to it in beating Quins. And that was because of the variation that they brought in their game. And I just think that variation is going to cause Bridgend a lot of problems. So for me, it's Newport by, I think it's Newport 6-pointer, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, John, final word on this one. I'm sure you got some odds for us. Is it's going to be a massive shock and see a Bridgend win, or is it all Newport?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Newport as well. Personally, I've been back in Bridgend, especially at home, but the way they've gone the last couple of weeks, they seem to have progressed, I think, slightly from how they started the season when I've been expecting them to kick on. The bookies, it's exactly the same odds as the Aberfan Ebbw game, actually 5-2 for Bridgend, 1-4 for Newport, 10 points with a handicap. And I don't think they're far wrong, but they're actually the bookies. I think it's going to be if Bridgend could get any points out of this game at all, I think that'd be good for them. But I could see Newport possibly getting 6 points and not knocking Bridgend too much. Just Newport is so good, and I'm so impressed with them. I think what Newport's weapons are will work effectively against what Bridgend bring. So I'm going to go Newport and Newport 6 points.
Something I forgot to mention is that this is a repeat of the first round, so all of these reverse fixtures have already happened, and Ebbw Vale won that first one and obviously Newport won against Bridgend. So Cardiff against RGC, it was a tight affair up in Colwyn Bay, and we've said a lot that RGC don't travel well, but they do tend to do all right on these artificial surfaces. So coming down to Cardiff, knowing that game probably got away from them, as good as Cardiff are RGC going to be chomping at the bit to try and right a wrong here? So Joe, as our resident Cardiffian, where can RGC really get at here?
Yeah, I think the first thing that RGC will be looking to come down to do is they'll be familiar with the surface, so that's going to be a good leveler for them. They like playing on these fast, hard tracks, but I think they've got to be looking to get parity of possession if they're going to have a chance of winning this game. And I think that's going to be the crux of it for me. I think what Cardiff are proving very adept is whatever game plan or strategy you turn up with at Cardiff Arms Park, you've got to be able to execute it well in the first half, but then you've got to modify it in the second half, because otherwise this Cardiff team's learning on the hoof and they're coming up and putting you to the sword. So RGC are going to have to really produce a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 performance here. And in the second half, they're going to have to build upon it and build upon the first half. Sorry about that. But I think if there is a team capable of coming down to Cardiff and causing problems, it is RGC. They've got the back line to cause the problems, and they'll have a pack that's used to playing at the pace that Cardiff are used to playing at. So I can actually see this probably being one of the tighter games of the rounds, potentially, because both sides are used to playing on this surface. But I still think Cardiff in the end will probably, with them being at home, will just have a little bit too much. So I'm going to say Cardiff by Cardiff by 9.
Yeah, it is hard to see past Cardiff in this game.
Yeah, well, I think I'm definitely going to go with Cardiff for this one as well at home. But yeah, I think like you said, the pitch is going to be RGC are going to prefer that to playing on a wet, soggy pitch. But I think Cardiff they're going to have too much, in my opinion. The bookies have got more than I expected, man. We've got 1-25. They've got Cardiff to win this one, 8-1 for RGC with a 23-point head start on the handicap. I don't think it'll be that much. I don't think it's going to be 20 odd points, but I think Cardiff are going to be fairly comfortable winners. It's going to be, I think it will be a 5 to 6 pointer for Cardiff, especially at home. And like you said, they're so good at figuring sides out as well and what to do in the game and what they're going to do. So it's all good to be staying with them in the first half, but then you could be prepared for that second half because it's just relentless. They're going to come again.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cardiff for me.
Yeah. So this is a bit of a boring week now. So everyone kind of picking the same. So. Llandovery against Pontypool, the first televised game of the season. Llandovery really snuck it at the end, 18-21 down there. And it's safe to say they've kind of gone on opposite paths since. We were raving about Pontypool after that first game. And they seem to have, dropped a little bit while Llandovery are finding, ways back. So I'll be nice and quick, nice and simple. Llandovery are going to pick up all the points in this one. So, John, straight back to you. Are Pontypool going to come out firing?
Oh, they're definitely going to come out firing. Because that's what they do. They're going to front up and they're going to be physical. But I think at home advantage again on that fast track that Llandovery have now got is going to tell in that second half. I think it's going to be tight for an hour, and I just think Llandovery are going to have that extra bit of fitness, and just do what they got to do then to ease away in the last 20 minutes. Bucky's got 1-6 for Llandovery, 3-1 Pontypool. 12-point head start with a handicap. They're going for Pontypool, and I think that's about right as well. I could see Llandovery maybe picking up 6 points for this. I've got 2 scores in my head they're going to win by, but is that going to be, that could be 12 points, 14, 6. So it's going to be around there. I think the bookies are not far off. So yeah, Llandovery 5 points, and I can see Pontypool scoring 4 tries up there, because they do like to score tries. But Llandovery win, I think, for me.
Yeah. So, Joe, Llandovery or Pontypool? Are we going to see a resurgent Pontypool?
Yeah, and I think, to be fair, I think it's a difficult little block of games for them for Pontypool. That you're playing Cardiff who are top, and obviously Llandovery who want to be challenging to be at the top at some point this season. So it's a difficult couple of games for them. But we know that their pack is going to give them enough possession during this game to win the game. It's just, I feel Llandovery, whereas in the first block we were talking about a couple of players coming back and those combinations had to play together, and then it was all going to, they'd all have to blend and produce a performance. I feel like everyone is back that they need to win this game, and I feel they're going to use this block to kick on and really click. So I've got Llandovery by 10. But it could be a little bit more than that. I don't think Pool are like these tracks at all. They want a slower, more physical game. And Llandovery, they're one of those packs that can cope with Pontypool's pack. And I think if Pool are, they've got to put in a 60, 70-minute performance. They didn't really keep their good start going at Cardiff. And I also think they've got to be so disciplined if you go down to Llandovery to get a result. So if they can get those 2 factors right, I think they've got a great chance of winning. But my head says Llandovery by at least 10.
Okay, that's everyone for Llandovery. No surprises, really. Last game of the round is Swansea at home to Carmarthen Quins. The Quins winning the first fixture 39-29 in what was obviously a very high-scoring game. And again, we see glimpses from Swansea, but we're not seeing... I don't even think we've seen a 60-minute, performance from them yet. And Quins, even though they've lost against Newport in this most recent round, they lost quite impressively. They showed that they can handle. It was, a 19-17 in the second half. So they can stick with teams, and especially going to play a winless Swansea who are kind of hapless at the minute, unfortunately. I don't think anyone is going to say anything outside of a Quins win here. So, Joe, straight over to you.
Yeah, I think Quins will be quietly seething with the way they started that game down at Newport last weekend. The second half being as competitive as it was. There was only 11 points in it at the end. I think Quins will just be really, really pissed at the fact that they didn't get more out of that game down at Newport. So I think their pack will be too old, too gnarly, and too physical for that young Swansea team. And they say winning's a habit, but I feel like the Swansea team are in the opposite sort of habit. They can't pull themselves out of that mire. And I don't see this weekend being any different. I'd love it to be. But for me, the big standout for me with Swansea, I find it's more what they're doing without the ball. I said it in the first blocks. They're so passive. There doesn't seem to be. It's almost like they're waiting to either push the team into touch or to force a knock on. That's the only way they can see themselves getting the ball back, because I don't know what their turnover stats are, but I would imagine they're really, really low. And I don't understand if you're heading up that defensive strategy, how is it you think you're getting the ball back at some point? Because you need a couple of turnovers to either save your bacon and stop a try, or to transition and get a turnover reverse. So and transition to a try opportunity. But I just don't see that from Swansea. They're very, very passive without the ball. So I think this will be Quins, and I expect it to be a 6-pointer, unfortunately.
6-pointer at St. Helens and not to the home team. What do the bookies say, Mr. Harris, and where does your vote go for this final game?
Well, the bookies have got this one exactly the same as the Aberafan game, the Bridgend game, but they've got Carmarthen Quins favourites 1-4, Swansea 5-2, and another 10 points with a handicap. I think this is one where they've actually underestimated. I don't want to come across as sounding too harsh on Swansea, but it's just I've been waiting for it to come. For them to prove me wrong all season. It's just not happening, and I just think the Quins pack is going to dominate them. Every scrum is I can see ending up in a penalty, and then Quins are going to have field position. They're going to have driving mauls. They're going to have pick and cores, and most of the day. And I don't see how Swansea are going to stop that, to be honest. And like we say, losing becomes a habit as well. You get into a rut, and their confidence must be through the floor at the moment. I'd say that every week when I pick Swansea to lose, I'd love them to prove me wrong, because I want to see them pick up a win. I don't want to see them go 10 games losing. But I can't see where it's coming from. So I'm going Quins for this one, and I can see it being 6 points for the Quins as well. Hope I'm wrong.
And there we go. That brings this week's podcast to an end. Thank you, everybody, for listening, watching, however you like to enjoy. Well, I don't want to say yes. That sounds a bit wrong, but there we go. Thank you, lads, for being with me. John, Joe, we'll do it all again next week. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Ta-da.
That was the Super Rugby Cymru podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.